Morning, everyone. My name is Jocelyn Apicello. This is
Alexa Fiumarelli. I'm a student here at William Paterson.
Yeah, so she's a student and I actually am an adjunct in the public health department. So I teach a course called Food and Community here on Tuesday evenings, and I'm happy to be back. I usually have my partner in crime from the Ecological Citizens Project with me, my husband, Jason Angell, but he has a bad back because we were farming. He pulled his muscles. And my kid has like pink eye. And we got 100 baby chicks this morning in the mail. And as you guys know, it's about 28 degrees outside. So we figured we had to have someone stay behind and look after the little teeny chicks that need to be really warm on this really cold April 6th spring day. So thanks all for coming. Can you tell me how many people here are students? How many people here are non-students? How many people here are here for the course that, is it Dr. Brown? That Dr. Brown teaches. Okay, how many are here not because of Dr. Brown's course? Okay. What other courses are being represented here? How'd you hear about it? Yeah. Say it again? But what's the course name? Oceanography, cool, okay. Anyone else? Yes. Oh, great, in New Jersey?
Yes.
Oh, cool, thanks.
We have a show downstairs.
So you've got a table downstairs. Yeah, everyone knows that there's also kind of an expo going on downstairs that you can visit throughout the day, where there's lots of representatives there. One of our favorite representatives is down there, Sodexo. We'll talk about them a little. Okay. So we are here to talk about something called the Half-Calf campaign. I'm going to talk very briefly about what it is. Then I'm going to go into a little bit of discussion about ecological footprint, why beef, what's going on in other campuses and around the world that beef is contributing to environmental sustainability issues. And then we're going to talk specifically about what is happening seriously at William Paterson around this campaign. And then I'm going to tell you briefly about the project, the Ecological Citizens Project, which we're based in New York, about our farm, about our retreats that we have available to college students. And then we'll open it up for questions and stuff like that. Already a question?
What do you teach again?
I teach food and community.
Okay,
thanks. Well, no, yeah, no, you can do that's fine. So listen, the Half-Calf campaign. This is rooted in the idea that beef, production of beef, is one of the biggest drawers of our natural resources on the planet. In fact, the biggest, and I'll show you a few slides to back this up. And we have decided that by cutting or reducing the amount of beef that universities make available to students through their dining halls or other types of eateries could do three things for us here. It can save the university money, it can reduce the university's greenhouse gas emissions, which will reduce the ecological footprint, and it can also potentially improve student health. We are asking to reduce beef consumption by 50% and not just cut out meat altogether, but substitute back in for that 50% reduction other more sustainably produced meats or legumes like pork, chicken, goat, lamb, or things like nuts and legumes, right? So we're not trying to just take away food. We are just offering the idea that if you substitute beef, which is such a big footprint, then we might be able to have three positive outcomes on the campus: save money, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and improve health of the student body. Those are our goals. So leave this. So first, I want us to think about consumption. What do you think of when I say the word consumption? Taking in. Abundance. Consume. What else? What do you think of consuming? Food. Okay, good, because we're talking about beef. What else? What else do we consume in this society? Energy. Resources. Oxygen. Information, right? We consume everything. When I talk about consumption, I don't want to limit it just to the idea of going to a store and buying a product. I want us to think really broadly about the idea of consumption, that it might also mean information on our glowing little rectangles. It might mean the the end of the chain, right, where we're consuming natural resources in order to produce the things that we actually eat, put into our bodies, wear, drive, write with, right? So consumption is a really broad term. It doesn't just mean going shopping, right? So imagine you're walking into a food store, a cornucopia of things to choose from, right? And all of those choices you make have moral and physical implications for planet Earth and for the people who are working on it, right? And so I want to try to bring that kind of consciousness to your brains this morning, 9:30 in the morning, I don't know, on the hump day on a Wednesday. It's kind of rough, but I'm going to try to make you think ecologically. And what I mean by that is being able to see something in front of you, like say a hamburger, like say a bottle of milk, like say a pen, but really think back to everything and everyone that went into it, right? Into the production of it. That's what I wish that people would do constantly as we consume. That's what we try to impart on ecological citizens who come join us to try to think about the world as totally interconnected, right? So I have a question for you. There's this idea of personal consumption, right? What percentage of the world's greenhouse gas emissions are a result of our personal consumption habits, right? Of all the people on the earth personally consuming, buying, eating, things like this. What percentage? Is it 10%, 25%, 50%, or 60%? Right, so what percent of greenhouse gas emissions are a result of our personal consumption? How many people think 10%? Thank you. One guy is willing to admit it. Okay, 25%. All right, we got one more. How many people think 50% is due to personal consumption? How many think 60% is due to personal consumption? Okay, 60% is the right number. This is a recent study coming out of, let me just get the journal, the Journal of Industrial Ecology. So 60% of all greenhouse gas emissions are a result of our personal consumption habits. What percent of our water usage is a result of personal consumption? Water usage, right? This is another natural resource we care about conserving. Someone give a guess. What percent of water usage is a result of our personal consumption habits? Shout one out. 70, close. You're getting warmer. Closer. 80, yes. 80% of our water usage on this planet, according to the study, is a result of personal consumption. Why do I even bring this up? She says we're destroying our planet.
Because beef uses a lot of water.
Well, because beef uses a lot of water. I'll get to beef too. But I really want to make you and us realize we think of these problems in the environment, in our ecology, as things that are so big and untouchable, right? It's impossible for me, a student at William Paterson, a master gardener, a professor, whatever we are, to have an impact, right? Because these things are all because of the big trucks out there, or they're all because of the planes out there, right? Or they're all because of the oil rigs. But the truth of the matter is, if we changed personal behavior through some kind of cultural shift, we would have the biggest impact on, for example, greenhouse gas emissions and water usage, not to mention land usage and other resource-intense usages, right? So I'm trying to make us realize that it's the little changes that come together and actually can create effective big change in the end. That's a message you've heard before, but it really makes sense when you start thinking about beef, right? Okay. So I want to show a couple slides that talk about something called the ecological footprint. Does anyone know what that is?
Yes.
Yes, I've got a yes. Can you yell your definition out to the room? There's so many. You probably can't be wrong.
It's like in relation to the earth and like how many earths you're using.
Okay, it's in relation to the earth. It's kind of like how many earths you're using. That's one way we do try to articulate the measure, right? It's like how many earths does it really take to sustain our current behavior? It's something like 7.5, right? Yeah. Can you add to it? First you and then you.
The amount of natural resources that person uses.
Okay. That's what you choose. Okay, the amount of natural resources that not only just a person, but it could be at any kind of unit. So it can be like your personal resource uses, or it can be the university, right? Can have an ecological footprint. So can a city or a town, so can a state, so can a country, right? So it's the amount of natural resources we use. What are those natural resources? I gave you an example before, water. What's another one? Oil. Energy, yeah, well, yes. Lumber, nitrogen, oxygen, land. Land is the big one, right? It takes our earth, like literally, like you're saying, it takes our earth to produce all these things, to give us all these things that we take from it, right? And our ecological footprint is a measure of that amount of natural resources that we draw from the earth, which includes land, water, and then also those non-renewable resources that we take, like petroleum and oil and gas and those kinds of things, right? So many cities know this. Our university is a great example of someone who's done many green things, right, to try to reduce ecological footprint. And this is an example of a city in Canada. Everyone know where Vancouver is? West or East Coast? West, okay. So they have taken the lead in Canada to try to understand and measure their ecological footprint. I hope you can see this graph. Can someone give me a one-sentence interpretation of this pie chart? Be brave. Just a one sentence. There's so many sentences. Yes?
There's the overwhelming reason for Vancouver's ecological footprint.
Right. After they've done their study, they realize that food is the majority, right? The majority cause of their ecological footprint. That means things related to their consumption of food are causing the biggest ecological footprint. It's drawing on the biggest resources of our earth, right? Food, through land and water and fuel. Consumables, buildings, transportation, and then water resources all follow suit. Now let's unpack that majority of Vancouver's footprint in food. Can you do the next slide? And when they started digging deeper, they came up with another pie chart that tried to explain the food component of their ecological footprint. Can someone give me a one-sentence interpretation of this one? Someone from the fourth row. Fourth row, who's brave? Oh, yes, thank you. Do it.
Fish, meat, and eggs are mainly the main component of the food.
Okay, very good, thanks. Now, if you fish, meat, and eggs, and then just go to the opposite and add in dairy products, right? Because that's a result of livestock as well, right? And then you have a majority, again, of the food components footprint coming from livestock, right? So there's something going on. We're starting to realize around the world that our livestock obsession is potentially not sustainable, right? Can we go to the next slide? So, who knows what the COP21 was? Anyone remember? Just last year, do you remember what it was? Just last year, she's like, this is when you call on me? COP21 was like the Paris climate summit that happened last year, where all the major nations came together and tried to reach an agreement on climate change, right? We had it a long time ago. It's where the Kyoto Protocol was born several years ago that the US didn't sign. This is an example of the 2015 version in Paris. Now, do all of you remember who our favorite, this should play. I don't know actually if the speakers work, but we'll see. This is meant to play a clip from former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was at the Paris climate change. There's a commercial. She's skipping it, thank you.
Yeah, you can't see it, but you could hear it.
Paris have entered their 9th day. Delegates are working to reach a deal to keep global warming below 2 degrees Celsius. Several of Wednesday's events are focusing on the climate impacts of meat and dairy consumption. Singer Paul McCartney has been highlighting the importance of a meat-reduced diet. He says the livestock industry is responsible for a massive percentage of greenhouse gases. German MEP Jo Leinen says diet is one of the most delicate issues of climate protection. Activists in Paris are taking a gentle approach to the world's love affair with meat, ranging from offering look-alike plant burgers to suggesting a gradual weaning off animal protein. For now, meat consumption is rising in many countries, despite warnings. Most recently, a World Health Organization report found eating processed or red meat increased the risk of developing cancer. Delegates hope to secure a final climate deal by a deadline of 6 p.m. Central European Time on Friday.
Okay, was the video worth it? Or it's like, it was just the audio, right? Okay, my husband told me that Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be the quote. Apparently, he lied to me. But you still got the gist, right? They said Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
They said some famous people. Okay, so what was the gist of that clip? What did they realize? What's going on with our meat obsession?
That it's,
Yeah.
it's like getting to an extreme. Like we're consuming so much of it that it's actually like endangering our bodies.
Okay, it's getting to an extreme. We're consuming so much, it actually is endangering our bodies, also our planet.
It's potentially not a sustainable habit, and also could potentially be like, dangerous.
Okay, yeah, so it's potentially not sustainable and could be dangerous. And now what do you think came out of that COP21 Paris 2015 climate change summit? What did they decide? All those world leaders, what did they decide about our obsession with meat consumption? Nothing. Okay. They didn't do anything about it. We know from lots of studies that our global, but very in particular US-based obsession with eating meat is one of the biggest contributors to climate change, to ecological footprint. And it was even talked about at the summit, but our world leaders still have not done much about it, right? It's still not part of the Paris Agreement. That doesn't mean it cannot be a part of the William Paterson Agreement or other New Jersey university agreements, right? We can start doing things on smaller levels that will speak to the people up above so that we can somehow try to get some top-down changes arising from our bottom-up changes. Let's see. There are so many of these things. Sometimes I feel like a real fool being a teacher. I don't know if any other instructors feel this, because everything is at your fingertips now. You know, if I ask a factual question, all you have to do is look it up, right? So what's the point of me coming up here and like telling you facts, right? So if you Google the idea of beef and its ecological footprint or those kind of things, you'll find so many images. This is one example of an image that I thought conveyed a message about how damaging beef could possibly be. Can everyone see what these blue, yellow, and grays represent in the back? Can you see it? Can you, Alexa, just read out what those are? Because people in the back can't see it.
We got gallons of water, pounds of grain, and pounds of CO2.
Okay, right? Gallons of water, pounds of grain, pounds of CO2. So someone in the fifth row, give me a one-sentence interpretation of this image. Hey, row 5. Someone, one sentence.
Eat a lot of beef, a lot of water is used to create it.
Okay, so we eat a lot of beef and a lot of water is used, right? That's that huge blue circle. Alexa, what's the number on the blue circle? 1799. And then what's the image, what's the blue number next to the lamb is 731. Okay, so beef.
Very significant.
It's very significant, consumes a lot of water. Anyone want to venture to give me the one sentence interpretation of pounds of grain or pounds of CO2? Just say it. The more you say it, the more you'll start believing it.
Maybe why CO2 is up there, what that does?
Yeah, tell them.
No, someone say it.
No! Don't you want Alexa to say it?
What is
Explain
it?
to everyone what is pounds of CO2. Why is that up there as an important thing?
Because it's a greenhouse gas.
And what does CO2 in our atmosphere do?
It aids in global warming.
Okay, it can help create conditions that allow for these climate changes. I mean, hello, 20 degrees this morning? That's not fair. It's crazy. Say it again. Oh, you're talking about the weather still? The weather. The weather is such an interesting topic these days because of this erratic climate change potentially that's happening, right? So we care about CO2 emissions because those have an impact on our climate, on our ecology. What's the deal with pounds of grain? What does grain have to do with the ecological footprint? And what grain in particular are we talking about? Tell us. Which grain is it?
Rice.
Not rice. Corn. How many people know that you are all people of the corn, pretty much,
Yeah.
right? Watch King Corn, which is a great documentary. Do any kind of research. Read the back of anything that comes in a package, and you will find corn on there. And it may not say corn, but it might say citric acid. That comes from corn, right? It might say xylitol, that starts with an X. That comes from corn. So corn is in all of our food if it's processed, a lot of our food, right? And what's the deal with corn? Yes?
They're buying so many of it and they're feeding us so much of it, but we can't even digest it.
Okay, so they're feeding us a lot of corn. Who's they?
I mean, like, the government.
The government? Oh, geez, the poor government. They always take such a big hit. Okay, so the government is feeding us corn. What were you going to say? Just say it. No? You weren't? Okay. Next to you? No? Okay. He was, right? Okay, so the government's feeding us corn. Corn takes up a lot of space. Has anyone been to the middle of our country? Yeah, the middle of our country. You know, like that. Yeah, Montana, Iowa, like all those states out there where all they grow is corn. Like 100% almost of their production in agriculture is corn. And what percent of that corn goes to feed us?
50?
How many think? Okay, 90, 50 is getting warmer, so you got to go lower.
40.
30 lower.
25.
25 lower.
20.
Lower, yes. So, okay, nearly zero from that middle of our country of that corn is feeding us. Almost 100% is feeding livestock. Okay, we grow so much corn. The government does subsidize it. And most of that corn, though, is going to produce grain for livestock. And what's the livestock that eats the most grain? Yeah. Now, I love cows. I do still eat beef. I want you to know I'm not a vegetarian. I raise pigs and chickens and turkeys. I'm not against livestock. But I want to point out that our obsession with beef in particular is not sustainable, and we can reduce it and limit it and have some big payoffs, right? Okay, our campaign goal is this. The half-calf campaign goal is this. Convincing colleges and universities to cut beef consumption on campus by 50% and to replace it with more sustainable meat and vegetable alternatives, right? To do those three things: save money, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and improve student health. Now, I would like, if you don't mind, Alexa, to tell the group, how did this half-calf campaign become born?
So it all started on the farm, and we were talking about ways people are getting active and trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and they actually connected us with people from Canada who did Meatless Mondays on his campus, and we were talking to him, and then after looking at it for a while, we were like, we looked and we couldn't find data that proved that it actually did something. We think it's great, so we were like, how can we help in this? So we put our heads together and we were like, beef. This is what we could do. We could ask people to reduce their consumption, so we're not asking you to not eat beef, we're asking you to just reduce how much you eat of it. And we need more options in our cafeteria, because if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you can't just eat a salad every day. That's just what they would think is lettuce on a plate. So we need more options.
So wait, we tell the crowd who we was.
The ecological citizens.
Okay, so we, on my farm, Longhaul Farm, which is based in Garrison, New York, we have this Ecological Citizens Project where we have retreats for college students or post-college to come to the farm and learn about ecological sustainability issues, right? And so Alexa and another fellow student at William Paterson, they were part of our first cohort. And through these retreats on the farm, which I'll talk about at the end, really what we, like some of the fun stuff that we do, besides develop these campaigns, is to try to come up with something that you can act on as a group, as maybe at a university level. So talk about that comfort zone thing.
Yeah, so they were teaching us so many amazing things. It was such a grounding experience. Like, they couldn't get me to leave. I was like, okay, when am I coming back? Oh yeah,
she actually wouldn't leave.
We wouldn't. We were like, we're staying, camping on. But so they taught us all these amazing things, gave us all these different views, and then they looked at us and were like, okay, do something with it. Like, let's put this in action. Do something. So they wanted us to step out of our comfort zone, and it was just so amazing. And that's when we came up with this campaign.
And so when it comes to solving our planet's sustainability crisis, like I said, it can stem from individual behavior, right? How many people in here, for example, are already vegetarian? A few. Any vegans?
Oh, yeah.
Vegans. Are you still? You're wavering. Okay, so for example, these like 5, 6 people have already done something personally, perhaps to deal with these livestock and agriculture-related issues of climate change and sustainability. But things can also happen at higher levels, right? So we can come together as a student body or as a university and act and make a stance and send a message that we care about climate change, we care about sustainability, and here's one way that we're going to do something about it, right? So you can act on these multiple levels. And I wanted to point out, so where are we? What did we do? What did you do here at William Paterson? Because this campaign's here. How many people had ever heard of it before? Okay, right. And I teach a class, and I even tell them about it, and still no one's really heard about it. This is why we're doing the presentation here today. So tell us what you guys did so far on campus, and like what's our next step?
Well, so far me and Zack have been going around to classes, talking to people about it, just getting the word out, asking just connections, word of mouth, talking to people. Would you be willing to reduce your beef consumption? Do you think we need more options in the cafeteria? Kind of things like that. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. We've talked to the VP of student directories or something, and she was totally on board with it. She loved it. It was great. So I think hopefully some of you take from this and you sign our petition.
Well, so let's get to this. So besides talking to the student body, which you guys are the most important, right? Zack and Alexa also contacted an office at this university that is the most powerful office that you need to contact when you want to do a campaign that will have some impact. Who do you think they contacted? Who? Sorry. I heard a word, but I didn't hear. Student government, SGA. No, they're even more powerful. Even more. The president. Yeah. Okay, so we went to the president. We emailed her, and we said, can we meet with you? Well, I didn't. You guys did. Can we meet with you and discuss this campaign that we think will make our university more sustainable, but also it will be really good press for our university, for example, right? Because it shows how much we care. And so what do you think the president's office did? No, they said yes. Oh, they did? Yeah, they met. They didn't meet directly with the president. They met with the liaison of the president, who was then able to spread the message back up to the president. The president's busy, right? But they took the initiative, this president's office, your president, to actually listen to the students, right, on this campaign idea. And then they talked to the liaison, who you said loved it. But we ran into a hiccup. The hiccup is, do you know what it is? It's referring to that place that I mentioned before that I said we get back to. They have a table downstairs.
The cafeteria?
The cafeteria. Who's the food provider, the food service contractor? Sodexo. Okay. Sodexo is a huge food service provider, has thousands of contracts across the globe. They, as well as Chartwells and other places, have huge contracts across the globe that provide food services to institutions like universities, hospitals, things like that. So now, one of the issues with our contracts with places like Sodexo, who we at William Paterson happen to have a contract with, is that we sign 10-year contracts, right? So 10 years is a long time to bind into prices and items, right, that will be provided to the student body. So the president's liaison and their office said, well, listen, we just signed a contract, and that's not negotiable. I mean, we've still got years left on this contract with Sodexo. So then we went to Sodexo, and we said, listen, we know you have this contract going on, but is there any way to negotiate? And guess what they said?
No. Yes.
They said yes. Do you know what they said? They said, yes, it could be negotiated. I mean, I don't think they would write that down, but it was in words, face to face. They said, sure. They said, we need the student body to demonstrate that they want this, right? We need you guys to demonstrate that you care about this issue, you're willing to have this contract renegotiated to, for example, cut beef by 50% and replace it with more sustainably grown and cheaper other options, right? So what do you think that means for you guys? That you could take action. Now, does that mean you have to stand out with a picket sign outside of like the Sodexo headquarters, like the old school way we used to do it back in the 80s, 70s, 60s. No, you don't have to do that. We have petitions. You can buy less beef. Well, so one way to start doing it, I like you that you said that, is to just start buying less beef or eating less beef in the Wayne Dining Hall or at the food court, right? Because those boycotts or those soft boycotts can start to create a message, right? But you can also sign a petition. So I want to I'll come back to that one more slide and come up. But we also have on change.org, which is a pretty big website that likes to host a lot of change campaigns. You can do an online petition. So we just posted the Half Calf campaign at William Paterson University on change.org. So you can just search for it, like with Half Calf WPU, and you can sign the petition, right? If we collect your signatures, it's like saying to our president and to Sodexo that we are happy to renegotiate. We want you to sit down at the table again and do something about this, right? So are you going to sign our petition?
Yes.
What do you want to say?
This may be like really uneducated of me to say, but like, aren't like cows and like cow fart like bad for the, you know?
For the environment?
Yeah.
You mean like the methane gas that's produced?
Yeah.
Yes. So has anyone ever seen a big cow operation? Oh, tell us what, can you say out loud?
Just the slaughterhouses.
Okay, she's seen a slaughterhouse. So some of you might have, oh no, they don't allow cameras in there, so no one's ever really seen it.
Unless you're passing by and just the stench.
Okay, so driving by and the stench. And this is a slaughterhouse, not like even the place where they're eating.
I saw a video that like there's like this a farmer did like look for a chicken house.
Yeah, so there's a lot out with chickens. And
Yeah.
what was your impression
I felt really bad.
for the chickens?
Yeah, because they're all caged up and everything.
Yeah.
And then they also chop off their heads and it was like really sad.
So, I mean, I think that one of the things that you guys are getting at, besides the animal welfare too, which is like, these are huge, big operations, right, that are just massive. And so if you have a huge concentration of cows, first of all, eating grain out of a feedlot, and then being shipped to the one of like pretty much 3 major slaughterhouses that we have in the country, right, is you have this heavy concentration of methane gas emissions. And I have this great image on my Prezi, which maybe I'll show you, but it shows the kind of runoff from one of these cow feedlot slaughterhouse operations into the nearby water body, just to show what kind of environmental effects you can even show with pictures, not to mention the methane and the CO2 that gets produced from all of this that has like atmospheric implications, right? Okay, so back again. So are you going to sign the petition? You don't have to yet, but make sure you're educated about it. Like, read about this campaign. We have on our website, ecologicalcitizens.org, we have an issue brief. It's 2 pages. It gives you some hard numbers, some facts, to see if you really want to get behind this idea. Well, there's only one. I didn't have time to make copies because I also got pulled over by the cops this morning because I have a cracked windshield. It wasn't for anything too major. Okay. I want to show this quick table, which is on our website, which uses William Paterson numbers to show the money that can be saved and the reduction in greenhouse gases. I know, numbers are so boring, but they really work with people like the President's Office and Sodexo. Okay, so you got to have them even if they are like kind of confusing. So if you see up there the first box, 80,000, that's the current pounds of beef consumption that William Paterson, yeah, well, a year from you guys, 80,000. And so it took a little sleuthing by you guys to, by Zack and Alexa to get that number. So we know that 80,000 pounds of beef is what is consumed on this campus, which costs $344,000. I mean, that's in, yeah, $1,000. And then it has 1.76 million pounds of CO2 emissions. And you can see if we reduce that by 50%, obviously all those numbers get cut in half. But down here is where you can see the replacement mix, right? If you replace that 50% of beef with chicken, right, then you will see a savings of this much money and a savings of this much pounds of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Likewise, if you replace the 50% of beef with 100% of pork or 100% of legumes, right, if you mix these together, right, if you just start offering more chicken, pork, and bean dishes, right, to replace that 50% that we take away, then you end up saving almost $100,000 and this much CO2. So there's hard numbers that can back up that you're not going to lose money on this deal, and you will be able to reduce the climate impact, right? So it seems like a win-win. I just want to point out that other colleges are doing it. We're working with Bard College as well. They have these kinds of carbon comparison emissions, and you can see it's another pie chart. People love pie charts. Those also speak well to Sodexo and the president. Is that through menu engineering, right? Pretty much what they offer to their student body to eat is where the majority of their CO2 emissions come from, right? And in that food, this looks like this mimics the Vancouver side, right? That I showed you in the beginning, is that the majority of it comes from beef and dairy products, right? And so Bard is getting potentially on board this campaign too because of not only the ecological benefits, but it saves money because beef is more expensive, and it's better for your health potentially, right? Because legumes and chicken and sometimes pork can be healthier options. I'm not going to talk about nutrition. I'm not going to talk about, what beef supplies that pork does or doesn't supply. These are things that we have to learn about, but it's not part of this talk, but it can be done, right? So after a few more numbers, are you going to sign the petition?
Yeah.
If I do and it saves the university that much money, am I gonna get a lesser tuition?
Well, that's exactly what you need to ask for. You're spot on. The website talks about it. Why can't that be financial aid? Or why can't there be a reduction in tuition or a reduction in room and board fees, right? You guys pay a lot of money for the privilege of eating at Wayne Dining Hall, right? And so then why not be eating things that you want to eat or that are healthier for you and the environment, or why not have that cost potentially brought down? These are all things that you as students are who they want to listen to. Remind you of the story. We started with the president, and it comes down to you. The president said they're powerless. The president said they need you, the student body, right, to come behind this idea. We believe that you can. So we have a petition that I'm going to sign around that's a paper one. I'm going to sign this around. I'm sending this around. Don't feel obligated. I'm just making it easy for you to sign it while we finish up the talk.
Do you have to be a student here?
Say it again?
Do you have to be a student here?
Yes, this one is if you are a student, I think. But I think if you're not a student, then you can go to change.org and search for it and just add a name, right? Or you can even write an email that says, I'm not a student here, but I believe that the students of William Paterson deserve X, Y, or Z. I'm just going to pass around a couple. If you don't mind, you can read the top. Do you guys have questions about beef, pork, chicken, legumes?
What about the people who don't eat pork?
What about it?
We have other options.
Have other options, right? So make sure when you're asking for it, don't just ask for 100% pork to fill those hamburgers,
Fish,
right?
shrimp.
Have fish, have chicken, have beans, have nuts, have other things that are sources of the protein that we think beef provides to us. But don't just make it one, because there's dietary restrictions for a lot of people, right? Be flexible in what you ask. Now, I want to ask if there's any more questions. I want to also plug the retreats that we do. If you are a student here, or even if you're not a student here, but you are of student or post-student age, and you care about issues of sustainability, you can come to my farm. Yeah, the last slide has it. Okay.
It's so beautiful.
So the name of our farm is Longhaul Farm. So let Alexa, what are some of the things? We worked outside on the farm, and then we also did some inside, talking, discussing, and campaign developing. But what did we do outside?
Oh, it was great. We did composting. We grew our own food. We learned a lot. You guys tied in how the environment, the political aspects and everything, things you wouldn't normally think of. They really opened up your mind to a bunch of things. It was the first time I ever camped.
Yes, you were required to camp in a tent. Mind you, they happen to come in October, where usually you get some nice warm nights. No, it was just like this. It was below freezing and pouring rain. And you have Alexa and 7 other students who are not just from William Paterson, also from the Bronx, Bard College, and Marist, right? Coming together and sleeping in tents, some of them for the first time. They may have heard a coyote, perhaps, at night. They may have heard some animals kind of, you know, skimpering around. But on these retreats, we want to impart the idea that you can reconnect with nature, right? Because when you live here or when you're a student and you're so busy, right, you lose touch with the natural world, and that's very natural. So we offer these retreats to get you guys, people who are learning and are just trying to make it work, to come to a space where you can hang out with other people that are like-minded and that you care about ecological sustainability issues, and you learn how to farm, how to garden, how to cook, right? How to eat together, how to enjoy times together, and then how to talk about very deep, important issues like social inequality, the political system, right? Cultural change, and all of these things mesh together at this one place at Longhaul Farm, which is where we do these retreats. So we have a retreat coming up, and I just want to encourage anyone who might be interested. It's over the course of 2 weekends, April 15, 16, 17. And then April 30, 31, May 1st. You can come to these, you can apply, right? And potentially come to these retreats. They're tuition free, and you get to just be outside, learn about farming, and really try to identify a campaign that you want to work on, right? That you care about. Because it's not all about beef, right? There's so many things we could do and change in our current culture that will help promote ecological sustainability. It's not just about beef, remember that, okay? And you guys are the change activators who we need to come and be in our space and bring us young, new, fresh ideas of how to change things, right? And we, meaning myself and Jason, my husband, who's usually doing this presentation with us, we are there to mentor you and help you through this change process. Okay, I did my plug. So if anyone's interested in applying, you can go to ecologicalcitizens.org, and the application's there, website's there, and all these things.
It's definitely something you wouldn't want to miss out on. It's a great experience. I came to class the next week, and I was sitting in class, and I was like, I know all this because we talked about it. It was like crazy.
And we talked about it, you know, as we were planting garlic.
Yeah,
as
you don't even realize.
Making pizza.
Yeah.
But learning how to cook, the lost art of cooking that so many people don't have the opportunity to do, right? Because you have a microwave in your dorm room, or you work after classes and you don't have time to cook. So this gives you time and space to reflect that you are a human living on an earth that can have an impact, right? So does anyone have any questions? Me or Alexa?
What was the website again?
Our website is ecologicalcitizens.org. And actually, we're going to be downstairs for a little while at the table. So
Oh
you
yeah,
can
we
come.
have a table.
Yeah, so you can come by and see us. Or if you have any friends who couldn't get up for a 9:30 talk that are interested in these kinds of issues, remember, it's not just beef. It's about everything. It's about inequality, sustainability, justice, everything. Feel free to pass on our information, because we want you guys to all meet each other and become part of the community, right, to make change happen. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.